most of the stuff that you're going to want to use is there. It might be in a different place. It might have a different icon on it. It might have a different thing when you roll over it with a mouse. It's just that ability to adapt to what's in front of you. And I think with Linux having all these different environments, GNOME and KDE and all that it gives that sort of flexibility in the way you think, that you can adapt. You can sit down to a different desktop and you're able to say, oh, that's my menu, right? If this button here, that's my menu in this one, and right, the menu's at the top corner with this one, and yeah, it gives you those tools to adapt.
Well, I think we'll move on to our next few quick topics. Roy, did you want to start your next choice?
Yeah, actually, it's you who brought up a certain article which we probably have to go through, and that's important to me because for quite a few years now, I've been talking about Microsoft changing and manipulating and basically misreporting the earnings, or some might say playing the bucket games or basically trying to pass around units to change the change the way they report the figures so that it seems like everything they sell is growing. Now, what actually has happened now, a person went as far as looking very deep into the numbers, and that's Paul McDougall, I think, in Information Week, and he's also contacted Microsoft to confirm what he found, and that is that they cheated at the scale of hundreds of millions of dollars when it comes to reporting the figures of Windows sales. Now, I wrote a post about it. One important thing to point out is if you look back at the days of Windows Vista, you'll find that Microsoft used to claim to sell at the scale of something like 4 billion, I think, a quarter. I think it's something of that sort for the Windows division. Especially when Vista was released, they sold lots of units at first, and obviously people found out it's not what they wanted it to be. But since then, the amount of money that Microsoft has earned from selling Windows, it's really important to emphasize, it's actually declined, although Microsoft claims it to have increased. What they compare it to is the period before Windows 7 was released. So they want you to look at Windows Vista, basically, after like 3 years of being completely rubbish and being completely devoid of any activity. Almost 3 years after the RTM of Vista, and they want you to compare this to the current numbers of Windows. Now, not only is it not so impressive when you look at things in perspective, but it also turns out that they basically cheat. So they add some things they shove some things extra into the Windows unit or division, and then they claim a certain number, and in some sense I think that's defrauding the investors because that's misinforming them on purpose just to give the impression that they sell Windows well. So it hasn't been covered much as far as I can tell. I wonder if you guys have anything to say about that.
Gordon, do you have anything to add before I put my 10p in?
Well, the first thing to say is all these companies, including Microsoft, the one thing they're exceptionally good at is misleading people. They are very professional at doing that. They are past masters at doing anything and everything to stay legal as far as the stock market is concerned, so that they're not going to get lawsuits coming back from it, but at the same time mislead and intentionally misrepresent what they're doing. They all do that, and Microsoft do it an awful lot. What I've noticed before with Microsoft is they'll count. They are very creative in how they count different things. Like if you buy at the time when they did for special people, if you're a special customer, you can be allowed to buy a Windows 7 computer. You can't buy it with XP, but you can have a rollback and you can install XP on it, but it still counts as a Windows 7 sale. So when they're looking at the numbers, they're saying, oh, this person, they love Windows 7, they chose Windows 7. No, they didn't. Oh, sorry, Vista, to roll back to XP.
They do the same thing they do the same thing now.
To
point out. So you're actually right when you said
Yeah.
Windows 7.
So I mean, it counts. It counts as a sale the way they want to count it, rather than what it actually is. And in the case of Vista, it was people, even regular Joes in the street, who had never really been at all interested in IT or operating systems or anything. Even they are saying, "Oh, this Vista, no, I don't want to touch that. I'll just have XP." And when you go into a shop, and Microsoft, along with a lot of other companies, like to claim we're giving the market what they want. Well, they're not, because a lot of the market at that time wanted XP. They wanted to buy a computer with XP on it. And the vendors and Microsoft said, no, we're not selling you that. You have to buy it with the current one, which was Vista. We don't want that. And they were actually paying extra to get an older version of an operating system.
I just want to say something. Yeah, it's actually worse than you put it, because what they do when a person buys a computer with Windows 7 and he changes to XP or asks the shop to do XP, as far as I know, it's the same with Vista. It will count as two sales. So let's say this person bought Vista first and then he downgraded to XP, and he has to pay some fee to increase it to like Business Edition or something to get back to XP. And then they count it as two sales, not two sales of XP and Vista, but two sales of Vista, although the person uses XP. And I'm pretty sure that's the case. That's what I've heard from a person who should know pretty well. He works for IBM. So a person who bought XP or buys XP now could actually count as two sales of Vista. And one quick thing is, Dell claimed back in like July of this year, they said that less than 10% of businesses use Windows 7.
Well, I mean, it is creative accounting on a scale that even the mafia would be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo what Gordon said and Roy, but the only other thing you can say is you get all the press about the great sales of Windows 7, but when you actually read what people are saying about it or about not getting it, people are still sticking with XP. Some people are looking at alternatives, and if it was as successful as the text from Microsoft suggests it was, then we wouldn't be having this conversation at all, and everybody would be using Windows 7. And I mean, I don't put a lot of faith in any sort of stats I get from anywhere. So, but it did surprise me that how this about this article.
I spoke to a neighbor today. He's a professor who I would never have guessed would move to Linux, but it turns out he did install Ubuntu. And what he told me was that Vista was terrible. And now he's basically running Ubuntu, and because he still needs to do some things in Windows, he has VirtualBox running with Windows XP, of course. And he tells me what I heard, Windows 7 is really good, and I tell him, well, it's just Vista with under the hood. It's just the same issues with Vista, but it's more improved. They fixed a few things. They maybe fixed quite a few things, but he talks about what he thinks, what he heard from people, from adverts. He hasn't actually used it. He actually moved to Ubuntu now, and he's pretty happy with it, but he thinks, well, maybe this thing called Windows Vista is the greatest thing, and I should consider going back to Windows. And I'm just going to help in the next few days, and I'm just going to show him some things like wines so that he doesn't have to boot into Windows. He doesn't know he can run for certain websites that only accept Internet Explorer. He needs to have some very quick way of maybe just changing the HTTP headers in Firefox, just, quick extension to install, and he can access all sorts of sites without even touching Windows anymore. So
I was just going to chip in there with, I thought there's a great quote, and I was going to try and paraphrase it from memory, but I thought, you know what, while you're talking, I'll just go and find it and I'll read it out. This is from the late, great Douglas Adams, the writer of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He was a famous Mac user before OS X. He died before the first OS X. But anyway, he's got a few quotes about Bill Gates. So this is one that sprung to mind just on that discussion. The idea that Bill Gates has appeared like a knight in shining armour to lead all his customers out of a mire of technological chaos neatly ignores the fact that it was he who, by peddling second-hand, second-rate technology, led them all into it in the first place.
Yeah.
I love Douglas Adams.
I read this before, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what I was thinking was when Microsoft are saying they made this technological mire that people rejected called Vista. And now all the hype is about Windows 7 and about how you can escape Vista. Who gave people Vista?
Yeah, it's